So, good morning, and thank you all for joining me today on my little webinar. I'm anticipating probably around 40 minutes or so. I'm happy to answer any questions that you've got. Perhaps pop questions in the little Q&A box, and we can get to those at the end. And just to kind of give you a little bit of background in terms of what today is all about, as I'm sure most of you are aware, today, Thursday the 7th of February, is Time to Talk Day, which is an initiative that's championed by the lovely people at Time to Change, who are an association that's been around since 2007, and their intention is to help change the way that we think and act about mental health problems. And I think it's fair to say they are making, some really, really good progress. But there's still lots of people, lots of organisations as well, where actually we're not making time to talk, where we're not creating a climate where people can be honest. There's still very much a stigma around the whole, hi Neil, around the whole mental health thing. And, it's about encouraging as many people as possible to get comfortable with a topic that perhaps is uncomfortable, because it's only that way, if we can start to normalise those conversations, that's the only way that we're ever going to make a difference. And you don't have to be an expert, okay? You don't have to be a mental health expert to have a conversation with somebody about their mental health. What you do have to be is a decent, caring human being, which chances are most of you, if not all of you, are. So, Time to Talk Day, a specific initiative encouraging conversations around mental health. And my webinar was really prompted by the fact that I come across lots of people in the work that I do day to day who tell me that they would feel uncomfortable to have a conversation. It's not that they don't want to, and it's not that they don't care, and it's not that they, they're not interested in helping somebody else who might be struggling. It's just that they don't know how to go about it. How do I even begin? How do I instigate dialogue around mental health? What do I say? What do I not say? Oh my God, what if I said something and it just, kind of made the whole thing worse? Now, I work in lots of different industry sectors. I work in construction, television, the NHS, I work in distribution, all over the place. And I meet people all the time who are very uncomfortable with this as a subject. Managers who are doing perhaps a return to work interview, uncomfortable about what the reason's going to be. Situations in organisations where, they're noticing a change in someone's behaviour, but what do we say? How do we go about it? I don't want to offend somebody. So my webinar, my intention for our time together this morning is to help you develop the skills and confidence to have these conversations without feeling desperately uncomfortable, because unless we can get comfortable with the discomfort, we're never going to make a difference. We can sit back and we can blame the NHS and we can blame public health and we can say, the services aren't being provided. Absolutely, we know that resources are challenged, but what we also know is that we as decent human beings can make a difference within our communities, within our workplaces, within society as a whole. Never underestimate the power of a single conversation, in this fight that we have on our hands. So how do we do it? That's what today here is all about. But I do need to make a public health announcement, loud and clear. This isn't about you becoming a counsellor or a therapist or solving people's problems for them. This isn't about you becoming their lifelong confidant, okay? I really want to make sure that we've got boundaries around this. This isn't giving you license to, go out there and do this kind of stuff. This is about recognising, there are professionals out there who are absolutely trained and qualified to do that. This does not make you one, all right? Really clear. So, who the hell am I? What gives me the right to be here today, whittering at you from the frozen north? Well, my name's Andrea Newton, and my business is Achievement by Design. And I've been involved in training and development in this arena for 20 odd years now, which is really interesting because I am only 27. in my head. You might see there on the screen, there's a photo of my son who graduated last year. So that gives you a clue as to how old I am really. And my son has actually asked me to stop saying that I'm 27 because he feels that that's wrong and inappropriate. But I can't believe he's 22 because I've still got to lose my baby weight. You know, where did that time go? But anyway, for the last 20 odd years, I've been working as a freelance trainer, working with lots of different organisations, as I say, people like ITV, people like Iceland Foods, Warburton's, NHS, all sorts of organisations, really encouraging a climate where crucial conversations, confident conversations, courageous confident conversations can happen. My background is in HR. Yes, I did used to have a proper job. Although some people might say that that isn't actually a proper job, but there we go. So yeah, my background's in HR, and that's how I got, you know, kind of involved in this area to begin with, because the line managers that I was supporting were perhaps struggling when it came to those difficult conversations. You know, some of them couldn't even have a conversation about, you know, somebody with women's troubles, let alone somebody that was having a, you know, a mental health problem. So that's where I first got involved, and I moved into more of an L&D role from that HR position. So, you know, I have worked in the real world. A couple of other things, just as a matter of interest, I'm heavily involved in dog rescue. I like to think that I rescue them when actually I think, in fairness, they rescue us. And I am not an alcoholic, but I am indeed a gin enthusiast. So forgive me, Father, for I have ginned. And pretty much everything that you would ever need to know about me is on that screen. So you can make your choices now, whether you stay or whether you go. Just checking out the numbers just to see how many people leave. Okay, so that's me. In terms of today and, you know, today's subject, as I say, you know, lots of things to think about, but I am a woman on a mission. I am, sometimes I feel like I'm a voice in the wilderness, but I am adamant that actually by developing more confidence, by getting more comfortable with it, we can make a difference, yeah? By giving somebody the opportunity just to even talk about their situation without fear of judgment or blame is absolutely phenomenal. They say, you know, depression lies and it's the silence that kills. So I am on a mission to do my little bit to smash the stigma, to aid recovery, to normalise conversations about mental health. And this is one of the things that we actually need to just get familiar with. We all have mental health, just as we all have dental health, yeah? I think sometimes we get stuck behind the statistics, you know, the 1 in 4 and the 1 in 6 and the 1 in 20. Guys, this is 1 in 1. We all have mental health, full stop. So recognizing that and actually just getting comfortable with it, because it's just part of the human condition. That's all it is. However, imagine I came into work this morning and I was at the desk next to you. And I was kind of, you know, holding my head a little bit and perhaps, you know, squinting and looking a little bit fragile. Maybe I'm even rooting in my handbag, looking for, you know, a box of tablets or whatever. And you said to me, oh, what's the matter? I might feel quite comfortable to say to you, oh, I've got a migraine. I've got a terrible migraine. I struggle with a migraine. And it's okay for me to say that, because actually it's okay to have a migraine. A lot of people won't feel comfortable to say, actually, I'm struggling with really low mood at the moment, or actually I'm feeling quite anxious, or I'm a little bit out of sorts because this morning I had a panic attack. Yeah, so some people won't be ready to disclose that, perhaps as easily and freely as we might say, you know, I've got a migraine. And that's actually part of the problem, because people don't know what sort of response they're going to get. They tend to, you know, kind of keep it to themselves. There's loads of statistics around as well that tell us that, you know, when people phone in sick to work, they actually don't reveal the real reason, because again, they're scared of the stigma, they're scared of how that might make them treated. And, you know, having a migraine probably isn't going to be career limiting, but, you know, there's the risk of letting somebody know that you're struggling with a mental health problem, and that potentially could be. So there's 2 ways that I need you to think about this. Firstly, recognising that actually we all have mental health, and actually mental health problems are just the same as a human condition such as migraine. However, the way we respond to it, the way we treat it, the way we feel about disclosing it is going to be different. So sometimes it's that issue that causes people concern. And I would say to you, if you take away nothing else from today's webinar, what I would really urge you to take away is, you know, just that sense of just get over it. All right, it is what it is. It is a human condition. We might have a migraine, we might be struggling with IBS, we might be diagnosed type 1 diabetic, or we might be struggling with stress or anxiety or depression or PTSD, or, you know, any of those things that are out there. What you need to remember, though, above all else, is just these three things. Be brave, be kind, be curious. Be brave, have the courage to say to somebody, are you all right? I'm a bit worried about you. Be kind. It's not about judging, it's not about criticising, it's not about blaming, it's not about telling them to get a grip and, you know what, have a quick walk in the fresh air, you'll be all right. Oh, you know, why didn't I think of that? And it's also about being curious. Being curious in noticing what's going on with other people, spotting signs and symptoms that we'll talk about in a little moment. But be curious also in asking questions. It's not about you giving me your advice. It's not about you having all the answers. It's not about you diagnosing or, you know, kind of telling me what I should be doing. Get curious, ask questions. You know, what's brought this on for you? What's made this happen? What sort of treatment are you getting? Be brave, be kind, be curious. If you forget everything else, but you remember that, that will stand you in really good stead. Because, you know, we could all be anywhere on that continuum at any point in our lives. You know, we all have mental health. Absolutely. 1 in 4 people this year, the statistics tell us, will struggle. 1 in 6 in England, you know, 1 in 20 people will have thoughts of suicide. You know, there's all sorts of statistics out there, depending on whose report you read. But what we need to focus on is that any one of us could be anywhere on that continuum at any point. You know, you could be really lucky. You could be in a place where you are absolutely thriving. You are flying. You are at peace with the world and nothing is troubling you and you are good to go. You could, however, be the exact opposite of that continuum where you are literally hanging on by a fingernail. And you know what? The big thing that makes a difference is life. Stuff happens, or if you don't mind me using a technical term, shit happens that you just perhaps didn't expect. You know, it could be a threat of redundancy, it could be, I don't know, a breakup of a relationship, it could be somebody that's, you know, really important to you is diagnosed with some sort of, you know, illness or problem. Stuff happens that affects our mental health. None of us are immune. Okay, and we've got to get used to that idea and accept it is what it is, what it is. Shit happens, and none of us should ever feel that we're not vulnerable. None of us should ever feel that we're in a better place, you know, to judge or to criticize or to comment about anybody else's state. It's a human condition, full stop, end of. So recognizing that, you know, obviously there's going to be mental health illnesses where people are perhaps diagnosed with some of the, you know, the more complex stuff, you know, perhaps bipolar or psychosis or, you know, even PTSD or OCD, you know, there could be all sorts of things that people are diagnosed with. But mental health can also be affected by some really simple stuff. Yeah, if you've ever been in a house with a newborn baby that hasn't slept and you've got a couple of nights of broken sleep, your mental health will be affected. Yeah, you'll probably be feeling tired, you can't think clearly, a little bit foggy, you might be overly sensitive, you might burst into tears at the drop of a hat, you know. So please don't think of mental health being all the stuff that's got big labels that we're all petrified of. You know, it could be absolutely anything across that continuum. Shit happens, life happens, and if you're in a situation where you're getting one thing on top of another happening at any one time, who's to say that you won't be vulnerable? So please, attitude is everything when it comes to this. You don't need to be an expert. You don't need to solve my problems for me. You just need to understand and have an attitude that makes me want to, engage with you, share with you. I might even share with you the biggest secret that I'd ever carried if I feel that I can trust you and I can do so without judgment. So attitude really is everything. Sometimes you've just got to take a deep breath, put your big girl pants on and face into it. They do big girl pants in boys' colours for all the boys out there, so don't panic. We're just out of stock of the thong at the moment. But big girl pants come in all sorts of shapes and sizes and colours. It's just about the deep breath, putting yours on and having the courage to have a conversation that matters. Fundamentally, that conversation could actually save a life. One of the things that I didn't mention earlier is that I am actually a tutor with the National Centre for Suicide Prevention, Training and Education. And one of the things that we talk about on the suicide intervention training is the importance of a direct conversation. And actually, I was reading some research earlier this week. They looked at, literally millions of situations. And what they discovered was that the attitude that you show towards a person, if it's a caring attitude, if you are genuine and authentic and you care, you are far more likely to get a positive response than if you are apologising for asking, I'm really sorry to ask, or I hate to have to say this, but, because all that negativity that you put around the language gives that person the perception that it's not okay to talk to you, that it isn't safe to talk to you, and that actually they should just shut up. And I would suggest that's the last thing you want. So really think about that attitude, that caring conversation where you are inviting somebody to open up and to be honest with you. You just don't know the difference that you could be making. But what I don't want you to be doing, I don't want you to be just be rocking up in the street to somebody and giving it, oh, are you all right? There are signs and symptoms that we could be on the lookout for that might suggest to us that a caring conversation would be useful, would be helpful. So spotting signs and symptoms, becoming more aware, becoming more alert, recognizing, the stuff that gives us clues. But you know what? So often we're caught up in our own stuff that we sometimes don't notice. If it's you that's in the house with the newborn baby, you've got your own stuff going on and perhaps you don't notice that somebody else is struggling. Or it might be, you're at work and we're so caught up in the busyness of business that we don't notice. So please do some research, start to get familiar with the more common signs and symptoms that, people, friends, colleagues might be experiencing. Things like low mood, people who seem to be lacking in motivation, perhaps people who've withdrawn or they won't make commitments to future events, or they're isolating themselves socially. It could be that somebody is relying on drugs or alcohol. It could be somebody who, it's just a complete change in behaviour almost that you notice. They're struggling to concentrate. They might be making mistakes at work that's just totally out of character. Start to get familiar with the more common signs and symptoms. And just as a little reminder, what was interesting, 57% of workplace absence last year was due to stress, anxiety and depression. 57%. Yeah. The Health and Safety Exec are currently reporting 595,000 cases of work-related stress, anxiety and depression. Work-related. Organisations, employers, you know what, guys? Step up. You've got a duty of care here. If people are being so negatively affected by workload, by budget constraints, by restructures and mergers and all of that, organisations, you have a duty of care to spot what's going on for people and actively do something about it. Part of my woman on a mission, I get so frustrated with the number of organisations that tell me, oh yeah, no, we're doing this. No, you're not. You're ticking boxes. You're not actually, putting into practice real, practical, useful stuff that supports people. So there we go, that's just a little rant aside. So signs and symptoms, get familiar with stuff that's going on for people, because that will give you a clue as to whether, you know, you should instigate dialogue. However, a word of caution. Take a look at that from a holistic position. Don't just notice one thing and decide, oh, this person's struggling, I need to intervene wearing my Superman cape. It's about taking a much broader perspective. You know, I mentioned the suicide intervention training that I do, and in the programme we show learners a little film and we ask them to spot the signs and symptoms within the film. And the guy's got, his recycling bin is full of empty bottles, and he's looking a little bit dishevelled, and his hair's not been brushed, and, you know, there's dishes in the sink and there's a quilt on the sofa, and that's the kind of stuff that obviously we're inviting people to notice as being changes in behaviour, as long as it is a change. Because what I need to say to you is, you could come to my house on a Saturday morning and it would look like that anyway, and I'm not having a mental health problem, I've just, you know, had a few gins. So take a holistic view. Don't just take a snapshot of one thing that's happening for that person and jump to conclusions or, you know, race to assumptions. And the most basic, fundamental thing is when you say to somebody, how are you? That you actually mean it. That you actually take time to listen to what that person has to say. You know, so often we do that social interchange where we go, oh yeah, you're right, yeah, I'm fine, thanks, and you, yeah, I'm good too. And actually, neither of us are any the wiser about the other. We've just done that social etiquette thing. What I'm talking about today with regards to a courageous conversation is actually making the time to say, how are you, and meaning it. Yeah, the listening to what somebody has to say is probably the most precious gift you can ever give them. Giving somebody time and attention. As you know, I said earlier, you know, it's just a human condition, the migraine, or whether it's kind of anxiety or whether it's depression. Sometimes the intensity of that, all you need is somebody to help burst the toxic bubble and listen while you talk, but listen without judgment, listen without criticism. You know, you're not there to judge. People need a friend, not a judge. And if you're going to ask the question, you've got to be prepared to then listen to the answer. I have a bit of a concern with some of the initiatives that are around mental health, you know, saying that people need to reach out, saying that people need to ask, saying that people need to, you know, kind of start dialogue. That's great, but if somebody then opens up to you, you've got to then be prepared to listen to it. You can't just put the, you know, lid back on the box. Oh, that's too hard, put it back in the box, I'm not interested. Once you've opened that Pandora's box, you've got to be prepared to go with it, and, you know, really pay attention to what's going on for that person, fact as well as feeling. But how do we start the conversation? You know, what if we've not spotted signs and symptoms necessarily, or what if we've not got a how are you opportunity? You know what, guys, there's loads of stuff around at the moment in the media. There's loads of stuff on the television and cinema, in magazines, in newspapers. There's loads of articles. Social media's full of it. You know, get on LinkedIn. There's all sorts of stuff out there at the moment about mental health that you could use as a way into a courageous conversation. You know, last week I saw on television there was a programme about this, and, you know, it made me think about that, and therefore what I was wondering was, or the simplest way, just recently what I've noticed is this, and that's been, you know, that's a real change in behaviour. That's not like you at all. I'm worried about you. Have you got time for a coffee? It's about creating the opportunity that says to somebody, I'm all right about this subject, and, you know, I'm open to talking to you about it. I'm concerned about you. You know, that kind of caring approach. Who's going to argue with that? And that is what I think people are concerned about more so. Not so much how they start the conversation, but the response that they might then get. Oh my God, what if you say to them, how are you? And they tell you, heaven forbid. But there is also a concern, I think, that sometimes we'll ask how they are, and somebody will just say, fine, thanks. And you don't believe them. Your gut, your instinct, there's something inside you that says, actually, I don't believe that you are fine, thanks. And, you know, the people at Time to Change, Time to Talk, absolutely say, ask again, ask twice. You know, if somebody says to you, I'm fine, thanks, and actually you don't believe it, And don't just leave it like that. Just say, are you sure? You know, I've just been a bit worried about you recently. You know, for example, yesterday, what I noticed when Fred asked about blah, 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 ask twice. Obviously, what you can't do is pin them to the wall, shine a light in their eyes and threaten to pull out their fingernails if they're not honest with you, because that really won't help, let me tell you. Joking aside, it's about letting them know that you are there. And if they still say, no, no, honestly, I'm all right, all you need to say is, okay, well, you know, I just want you to know that I'm here if there is anything, or even if you just want to get it off your chest, you know, I'm happy to go for a brew at any time. Just let them know you care. Now might not be the right time for them to share with you. They might not feel comfortable to disclose in this environment. So what you might do is just leave it at that, and then perhaps the following day, just drop them a little text message. You know, hope you're all right. Lovely to see you yesterday. The offer still stands. Give us a shout if you want to go for a brew. Yeah? They might say to you, no, I'm fine, thanks. And they really are. And you think, oh God, I might feel a bit embarrassed. What if I've asked and actually they're fine? You know what? Get a grip, get comfortable with it. Because you have two choices. You can either be uncomfortable for those 2 minutes while you ask a question and they say, no, I'm fine. What are you asking that for? Or you can choose to be uncomfortable, perhaps for the rest of your life, when that person just doesn't turn up to work. Get over it. If they say, no, no, I'm fine, thanks, I've just got, you know, a few things on my mind, but I'm all right, then you might say, oh, I'm really pleased. Honestly, I was just a little bit worried about you, you know, so if there ever is anything, but, you know, I'm glad that you're all right. Don't be embarrassed about it. Why would you be embarrassed about being a decent human being? I don't know. The one response that I do think people are afraid of, though, is if somebody was to say, well, actually, now that you ask, what is going on for me is this. And they then choose to share with you perhaps the biggest secret they've ever carried. Then what? Then what? What do you do? And again, this is the bit where I need to remind you, you're not a counsellor, you're not a therapist. There are people professionally qualified to do that. Your role here is to simply hold the space, give that person time and attention, listen to what they have to say, and then perhaps ask questions, just as you would. You know what, if I came into work and I said to you, oh my God, you'll never guess what's happened, I've been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. You know, you wouldn't just go, oh my God, that's awful, right, shut up now. What you would probably do is you would continue the conversation. You would ask me questions like, oh my God, so what happened? How did you find out? You know, what sort of medical help are you getting? What have you seen your doctor? You know, what medication are they giving you? Is there anything that we need to think about? You know, is there any adjustments that we need to make? Is there anything I can do to, you know, you would continue the conversation. You know, you're not looking to provide the medical support here. This is just about having a conversation with somebody so that we can normalise these issues, so that we can make it okay to say, well, actually, I'm struggling at the moment with depression, or my anxiety is getting out of order, or, you know, I've recently been diagnosed as OCD. We are normalising this by having normal conversations, just in the way that you would respond if somebody, you know, shared with you a physical health issue that they were currently facing. You're not there to fix it. You're not there to give them advice. You're not there to make suggestions. What you're there to do is, as a decent human being, to let them know that actually somebody cares and that it's okay to talk about it. But what if the biggest secret they've ever carried is that actually they're having thoughts of suicide? Then what? The principles remain the same. You continue the dialogue. You ask questions. You listen to what they say. You explore the situation. Remember that curiosity? You know, talk to me about what's going on for you, what's brought you to this place. What is it that's giving you, you know, cause for concern? Are there any triggers? Is there anything I can do to help? You know, can I give you some support? Have you had some advice? Can I come with you? You know, continue the dialogue, but you're not going to start judging or criticising, as we said earlier, and you're also not going to start advising. Please don't get into that thing that goes, oh, you know what, if I was you, what I'd do was this. That isn't helpful, because you're not me. All right, you're not me. You're not in my head. You don't know what's going on for me. This is about you helping me create a safety plan. This is about you helping me by asking me questions. Okay, so how can we help you? What do you need to do about it? Who might you talk to? What sort of resources are you aware of? And you being aware of the resources that are available so that you can signpost people appropriately. That is your best function. Especially if you're an employer, you might have an employee assistance program, you might have some sort of support service. You know, it's about knowing what's available so that when you've listened and you've understood and you've taken time to create trust, you can together explore options and resources that might be useful for this person. But if you want to know more specifically about suicide intervention, separate webinars that I'll be running in the future. But guys, I just really want to bring us to the point where we start to recognise that there's actually no magic or mystique about this. Yeah, this is just about recognising that mental health, we all have it. It's part of the human condition. Some days it's better than others. Some of us may have ongoing mental health illnesses that are diagnosed, that have medication, that have treatment plans. Some of us, it might be something that's happening for us temporarily because of current life events. It doesn't have to be the big mystery, the big, you know, kind of challenge that in some ways we're turning it into. Those caring conversations where you are noticing people, you're noticing signs and symptoms, you are taking time to instigate dialogue, you are showing an interest in that person, and you are listening to them when they talk without being judging, without being horrified, without going, oh my God, that's terrible. It's about being a decent human being. You know, if we can't get past the silence that wraps around it, we cannot expect things to get better. Yeah, you know, I said earlier about we can sit back and we can put energy into blaming the NHS, or we can blame public health, or we can say, oh my God, it's, you know, it takes you 3 weeks to get an appointment to see your doctor, or, you know, it's 7 to 8 months waiting if you want some therapy. Absolutely. You know what? We can put loads of energy into criticising a system that is overstretched, that's underfunded, that's under-resourced. I get that. Or we could put some energy into actually making a difference ourselves, in our own communities, in our own workplaces. You know, the sum of all those little bits can be a massive contribution, but we've got to smash the stigma first. We've got to get over the attitude to this. We've got to get past, you know, the silence that sits around it, and actually think about how we can make a difference for people. So, time is pushing, and I know that you're all very busy people. In terms of courageous conversations, you don't have to be a mental health expert, okay? You don't have to have experienced it to empathise. And, you know, I get that sometimes we don't fully appreciate and understand the impact of things unless, you know, we've experienced it ourselves. I mean, before I had kids, I could never understand why, you know, if little Johnny was poorly, why that stopped you coming to work. Just put little Johnny somewhere and, you know, come to work. Oh, my slides have got a mind of their own. So you don't have to have experienced it to empathise with somebody. You know, thankfully, I've never had a brain tumour. I've never had a miscarriage. Thankfully, I've never been diagnosed, you know, with a life-threatening illness. But I'd like to think that as a decent human being, I could still empathise with somebody who had. So let's get away from the nonsense that unless you've experienced it, you can't really empathise. No. Not true. Actually, get a grip. And I don't want you to be my counsellor. A, you're not qualified, and B, I just want you to be my mate, or I want you to be my manager, or I want you to be my kind of, you know, next door neighbour. There are other people that are professionally qualified and trained to do the grown-up stuff. I just need you to be there for me and just be a decent, caring human being that I actually feel gives a damn. If you think about it, just, you know, our attitude towards a broken leg is very different than our attitude towards a broken brain. if you are an employer and you've got somebody that, you know, has a broken leg, you say, oh my God, what happened? How did that come about? How long are you going to be off work? Are you got, you know, anything we can do? Can you work from home? Can we make any reasonable adjustments in the workplace? You would have a conversation. Again, you are not an orthopaedic surgeon, so you don't understand bones ins and out, but what you do understand is that it can be negatively impacting on that person's life, and you want to do something positive to help. And I'd really encourage you to use that analogy. And I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not playing down the severity of mental illness, not in any way, shape or form. No, siree, am I playing it down, because you know what? It's shit, and I get that. But what I am saying is we need to, as decent human beings, develop an attitude whereby we can have conversations about it in just that same way. Because if we don't, nothing is going to change. I mentioned to you earlier, you know, obviously I do a lot of work in a lot of different industry sectors, and there are some sectors that are more at risk than others. And my thought for today is we've got to get over it. Whatever sector you work in, whatever job you do, whoever it is that you're interacting with, if we don't start making forward steps in this area, nothing is going to change. We can wait for the government investment in mental health services if that's what you want to do. I personally don't see much point in that, and that's why I am indeed a woman on a mission. And what I help organisations do is create climates where people want to come to work, where people can come to work, where people can perform at their best, where people can get the support that they need, where managers are decent managers, and where workplace well-being isn't Free Fruit Friday. Okay, no amount of free fruit or yoga class is going to compensate for the fact that I am struggling with anxiety and depression because I've got a boss who's bullying me and I've got nobody to talk to. Okay, so I am very much on a mission to help organisations make a difference at every level, whether that's doing, you know, a short 90-minute awareness session with them, whether that's doing a one-day workshop, whether that's working as a consultant alongside organisations to help them, you know, instigate some of this stuff. We need to get proactive. We need to start from a place of helping people build resilience, build that buffer, be more aware, all the way through to every organisation, every educational establishment having a trained suicide first aider. I work right across that spectrum, and it scares me the number of organisations that haven't yet signed up to this, or they have, but in a way that ticks a few boxes. It actually doesn't fundamentally make a difference to the people within it. So I'm a woman on a mission. I'm inviting you to join me. This year, my mantra is to be more pirate, with a belief that pirates didn't just break the rules, they also rewrote them. And I'd like to rewrite the rules around mental health and the stigma and the suicide risk that is very prevalent in today's society. And I would like to invite you to join me on that mission, to be more pirate, to rewrite the rules, and to encourage people to talk. Today is Time to Talk Day. Grab a brew, grab a pew, have a chat. Let somebody know that you care in a way that's helpful and that's supportive. I hope you found our session useful this morning. If you have got any questions, I am happy to now answer those questions, any questions that you might have. Hang on, let me try and do the clever stuff. My mouse keeps freezing, which isn't helpful at all. And let me open up the questions. Anybody got any questions that you want to ask? Oh, we have a question. How very excited. Have you ever worked with people who work from home? I was wondering if there are any specific health. Absolutely. So if you're talking about people who are based at home, perhaps people that you don't see on a day-to-day basis, you know, the challenge there absolutely is, you know, being able to spot those signs and symptoms in the first place. Because if you're not seeing somebody on a regular basis, you know, then it is more difficult to spot changes in behaviour. And again, I would say, Phil, that that's just about really good people management. That's about knowing your people. That's about communicating regularly. That's about keeping in touch. That's about making time to have decent one-to-ones, to have decent, honest conversations. You know, an organisation that I work with, it's a housing association. So in the morning, the guys come in, collect their jobs for the day, and then go. So the manager sees them literally for 8 minutes. And so what we've talked about is creating opportunities where actually they can have some valuable contact with that person. If you've got somebody who's working from home, obviously what you're not going to do is, you know, kind of go knocking on the door and rooting in the bins. But what I would encourage you to do is to have regular reviews, and where you are having a one-to-one, make it a quality conversation. Night shift workers, obviously, if you are working on shifts, what we know is people that work on shifts, they can sometimes struggle because their body clock's constantly having to readjust, and absolutely that can impact on mental health. And I would say the other thing, on a really practical level, because I am a practical northern bird, stuff that happens, for example, with a night shift is that you don't have as many people around often. You don't perhaps have HR in the building. You perhaps don't have as many managers around. So again, you know, people that are there spot the signs and symptoms. But yes, shift patterns can have an impact on people's well-being. So, any other questions? Is it just those 2 questions? Oh, who's chatting? Someone's chatting. What are they saying in their little chat to me? Let's just see. Hello. Will you be posting the webinar? I've had to take a couple of phone calls in the middle. Neil, how rude. Did you not tell them it was me? Yes, I will. Hopefully I've recorded it, and hopefully I will work out how to send that to you. Okay, so another really good question. What if you are convinced someone is struggling but they refuse to talk? That is a good question. Now, I would question why they are refusing to talk. Is it because the conditions aren't right for that conversation? Because there has to be clearly the right conditions, the right level of trust. And I would work, first of all, on my rapport with that person, because if that person isn't confident that this is the right situation, that they can trust you, then, you know, chances are they won't be as open to have that conversation with you. I would also wonder whether there might be somebody else who they would feel comfortable to talk to. Yeah, but if your gut instinct tells you that even though they're saying they're fine, they're actually not, then, you know, I wouldn't let it go. Obviously, again, I don't want you to turn into their stalker and following them home, but I would look at the conditions for the conversation. I would look at the rapport. I would look at the level of trust. I would look at what do they see perhaps as the potential consequences of sharing that with you. Are they worried that, you know, that will change your view of them? Are they worried that they're going to lose their job? You know, a really good question. So thank you for that. But yeah, don't let go would be my kind of top tips. Look at other ways of dealing with it. Okay, what if your questions are seen as interference or criticism? Okay, again, I think there's a lot in terms of what I've just said. You know, are the conditions right? Have you approached it in the right way? Have you taken a moment to build rapport first? You know, you're not just going to charge up to somebody and suddenly go, hey, your mental health, I've got a concern about it. You know, it's about building that rapport, it's about building that trust. And I guess it's about letting people know that it's a subject that you're okay with. You know, they do say, you know, the suicide intervention training that I do, we say to people that you've got to be confident when you ask the question, because if I get the sense that you're not confident with this subject, if I get the sense that you're anxious about this subject, I'm less likely to open up to you. So I think people would only see it as interference or criticism if you'd not done the kind of rapport building, if you'd not asked in the right way, if you'd not presented it that you were genuinely concerned about them as a human being. So I would start with that mirror moment and have a look at some of those situations. Sometimes people simply aren't ready to have that conversation. Absolutely. And sometimes, yeah, totally. Sometimes people are not ready. They're not ready to disclose yet. They don't feel that you're the right person to disclose that to. And that's okay. But it is, as I said earlier, it's about letting them know that you're there. It's about letting them know that you're comfortable with the subject. It's about letting them know that there are resources available. You know, if you're perhaps, example, a HR manager, somebody doesn't want to open up to you, you might say, well, look, that's totally fine. I completely respect that. However, are you aware that XYZ, you know, we do have the employee assistance program. We do have various resources available. Okay, someone's asking if I can show the slide for signs and symptoms. I don't know, you're asking for, you know, kind of technological miracles here. Hang on while I pretend that I know what I'm doing. Hopefully it's that. Oh no, yeah, there it is. Oh no, it's not. I tell you what I can do, you know, me and technology are not great buddies. What I can do is send out slides to anybody that wants them. So just drop me a little email if you want a copy of the slides. Okay, guys, it's 11:45. I did say we would be 45 minutes. I'm happy if anybody's got any other burning questions that they want to ask. At this point, I think I've answered all the questions in the box. Oh, someone's asking, can I recommend any books on mental health? Not a textbook, but something to stimulate thought. Do you know what, mate? There's loads of stuff out there. Start with perhaps some of the stuff around mindfulness. Mindfulness is really helpful. Perhaps have a look at some of the material on resilience. Perhaps have a look at stories. You know, people like Ruby Wax, her biography is really, really good, really interesting. You know, there's all sorts of stuff out there where people are sharing their stories and starting to open up much more, which is brilliant. Just go on Amazon or Google, and you know, it'll tell you all sorts of stuff, all sorts of publications. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I believe it's almost midday, and therefore it must be time to go and drink gin. Maybe not. Okay, hang on, a recommendation. There's a new book called The Art of Mental Healthy Conversations. Mental healthy conversations? I don't know. Anyway, search by Even Hood. It's excellent in my view. Okay, mentally healthy conversations. There we go, thank you. And somebody else is telling me my email address is no reply. Oh no, really? Okay, Andrea@abdcct.co.uk. Andrea@abdcct.co.uk. Drop me an email, ask me any questions, give me a shout, sign up for my mailing list, come along to my next event, do what you do. Somebody just said to me, thank you, excellent webinar. I know, it was great, wasn't it? Seriously, have a fabulous day, and I want you to all now go away. No, I don't just want you to go away. I want you to go away and have courageous conversations, okay? Commit to courageous conversations. Grab a brew, grab a pew, go do it. Any questions, give me a shout. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you for your participation. And I'll now thank you to go away and leave me alone to get on with the rest of my day. Cheers.